topic number 2 on procurement strategy and development. So, welcome. Mr. Samuel, eh? So, welcome to our topic number 2 on procurement strategy and development. This is a follow-up from our discussion yesterday, where we introduced the unit, and I believe you have been able to follow it up. You can also check on the YouTube channel to be able to check what we discussed there. So topic number 2 is on procurement strategy and development. So we need to understand how we are going to now be developing procurement strategies. Remember yesterday the discussion was centered around procurement and sourcing and what we need to do so that we can get it right. So today we are proceeding. By the end of the lecture, you will be able to define the scope and objectives of procurement. You'll also be able to identify and analyze internal and external factors that are going to influence the procurement strategy. You will also be able to develop and evaluate alternative procurement methods, and you will also be able to select the most suitable procurement method approach. We are going to be looking at a number of approaches that we use when you are doing procurement. And finally, you will be able to prepare and communicate the procurement strategy documents to relevant stakeholders. So we are going to be understanding who are the critical stakeholders when it comes to matters procurement. So we begin by understanding the meaning of the term strategy formulation. Remember yesterday or the previous session, we defined a strategy as a high-level plan. So we need now to be able to know how we are going to formulate and develop various strategies. Of course, these strategies are centered around procurement and sourcing. Of course, we have the general organizational strategies for all other organizations, but our key focus is on procurement and sourcing. And therefore, we are saying this is going to involve the process of coming up with a plan or an approach that is meant to help you achieve specific goals and objectives. Yesterday, or the previous session, I also clarified that different organizations have different strategies. They have different goals and objectives. I gave examples of an organization would have the objective of growth and expansion. Others have the objective of profit maximization. So for you to be able to realize these particular objectives, then you need to have formulated very nice plans to help you achieve these goals and objectives. So once we are doing strategy formulation, then there are a number of things that we need to do. Number one, we want to look at the current situation. So current situation is simply asking ourselves, where are we as an organization on matters procurement and sourcing? Who are our current suppliers? What is the current relationship that we have with our suppliers? Do we have anything in the name of pending bills or bills that suppliers have not been paid? That is the situation that we are in now, what we are calling a current situation. Then we also identify opportunities. Opportunities are avenues for growth or for us to take advantage. And when we are identifying opportunities, we can also not fail to identify threats. what are some of the things that are going to threaten our procurement and sourcing activities. This is borrowed from what we call SWOT analysis. So it's like when you are doing formulation, then you are SWOT analysis becomes a key concept for you, and then also involving setting objectives, and then you determine the best action. So after that, when you're going to have a list of objectives, then determine which is the action that you're going to take, so that now you're going to succeed in developing the best strategy. Now, the objectives of procurement strategy. So why do we need to develop a plan around procurement? Why don't we just wake up as organizations, as businesses, and just order? If I need some raw materials today to prepare a product like yogurt, why don't I just wake up and order? There are consequences. For example, whatever items that you are ordering may not be in the market. And therefore, you need the strategies that are going to ensure that you do not have any challenges when it comes to receiving of raw materials, payment of your suppliers, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so the objectives that we intend to achieve, number one, is we aim for the best possible value for money. No business is existing and they are putting money in places where they are not feeling value. It is the joy of every investor, it is the joy of every owner of the business to ensure that they are receiving value for their money. And value for their money will include what is our sources of raw materials. How much are we receiving these raw materials? Is it the least possible price within the market? And that tells you that you need to do a lot of research to be able to identify all that. And also, you need to feel that the goods that you are receiving, the raw materials that you are receiving, is equivalent to the money that you have paid for. And we do this through competitive sourcing. When you talk about competitive sourcing, then it is an activity where we are focusing on maximizing procurement processes that are going to enable us to save on cost. And also, as we are doing competitive sourcing, remember sourcing, or when we are talking about competitive sourcing, then we are getting goods from the most qualified suppliers, for instance. So it is also going to enhance our quality. It is also going to enhance the overall value that we receive for the goods. And also bulk discounts. That is where you are able to receive discounts because of you buying raw materials goods in large quantities. So those ones are like price reductions by by the sellers to the buyers of raw materials and other forms of goods and services that you intend to receive. And also uh, achieve supplier negotiations. There are conversations that you need to have with your suppliers. So these are things that you need to be done before. It is part of procurement strategies that you need to set. Number two, another objective is securing goods and services that meet your required standards. Every organization have their set standards in terms of the kind of raw materials that they are receiving, the kind of goods that they are receiving, and therefore procurement strategies are going to assist us to meet those standards and specifications in terms of performance, in terms of reliability, in terms of durability. When you go to the car industry, for instance, there are countries that are depending on sourcing of vehicles from countries like Japan, and those cars that are not new, that are used, there could be certain standards that you need to meet. You don't just import any car. Like in Kenya, they say that car should have a minimum of 8 years since the manufacturing date. Yeah, so those are set standards. It means any car that is coming from Japan that is over it is 9 years, 10 years, 11 years, there is no way the country can allow such kind of cars to come in. So those standards are set in the procurement world, in the procurement sector. And then issues to do with specifications, performance, reliability, durability. I've talked about all that. Another objective is minimizing disruptions and ensuring timely delivery of by diversifying suppliers. We want to minimize um, what we are calling disruptions, in the sense that we do not want to find ourselves in a situation where we do not have raw materials. We do not have the goods that we sell because we have disruptions of lack of those particular goods, because we are not doing it very right in terms of our procurement activities. So when we develop these strategies, or when we have the best strategies in terms of procurement, then these disruptions are going to be minimal. And also, it is also very important to ensure timely delivery of goods. So diversifying suppliers, simply emphasizing on the need for you not to depend on a single supplier for your raw materials, for your goods, and so on and so forth. So open up the space, have negotiations with different suppliers, in the sense that if supplier X is unavailable for delivery of goods, then you can call supplier Y and you still receive your raw materials, you still receive your goods, and so on and so forth. Other objectives are your ability to be able to integrate environmental and societal responsibilities into your procurement practices, such as sourcing for ethical suppliers. So it is not all about receiving goods, receiving raw materials. We will also, as we are doing our procurement activities, ask ourselves on the ethical bit, what kind of suppliers are we dealing with? Are they qualified suppliers? Are the suppliers dealing with standard goods? Mm. Do they keep their word when they talk about delivery of goods? Because that is part of ethics. And then we also go ahead and choose what we call eco-friendly products. Now we are talking about, we are having conversations like I mentioned yesterday in terms of renewable shopping bags. Countries like Kenya have banned the use of plastic bags, plastic carrier bags. So now we are moving to the reusable ones, or we have been using them for quite some time. We are also having, in terms of eco-friendly products, we're also having conversations around electric vehicles. We are also having conversations around the reusable water bottles, and so on and so forth. Other objectives include number 5, the need to leverage procurement to identify new technologies. As we take advantage of procurement activities, we are cognizant of new technologies. I think yesterday I gave examples of how banks are adopting automated teller machines that can be able to receive cash deposits, that can be able to receive checks. Very few years ago, those kind of ATMs were not available. Yeah, so when we are developing a procurement strategy, we are also cognizant of what is happening around technology. If you want to acquire a laptop today, what are the specifications that you are looking for, that you are sure they are going to serve you? Mm. In terms of storage space, in terms of Windows, in terms of core I, what kind of a machine in terms of the ability to store, charge, and so on and so forth. And finally, the last objective is fostering strong partnerships with reliable suppliers for long-term mutual benefit. So because it is not a one-off kind of a buying buyer and seller relationship, then you need to build a relationship with these suppliers that you can always count on them to be able to receive your goods. We now move into looking at factors that influence procurement strategy. Uh, what are some of the factors that are going to influence the kind of procurement strategy that we develop? Number one, the organizational structure, culture, and objectives of the organization or the company. Different organizations have different cultures, different structures. For example, we have what we call centralized and decentralized procurement methods. So when we are talking about centralized procurement methods, then it means that decisions in regards to procurement are made at a specific point or at the corporate level. So it means when you are developing a strategy, a procurement strategy for such kind of an organization, then you have to look for what that suits that kind of procurement activity that is controlled from one point. Nowadays, countries have adopted what we call the central government, and then we have other states, like we have in South Sudan, in Kenya also, we have the central government, and then we have the county governments that are headed by governors. Now, all those individuals cannot be doing the same procurement. That if I want a pen in my office, then I order through the central government. That would become very tedious. Yeah. So we develop a strategy based on our needs. If we have a company that is decentralized, that is having branches across the world, across the country, then each office can do matters procurement on their own. That is going to ease the burden of awaiting approvals and a lot of bureaucratic procedures for everything to be approved. Another internal factor that determines the procurement strategy, number one, is the other one is the availability of resources. When you are talking about resources here, we are talking about the budget, we are talking about the staff, we are talking about technology, we are talking about expertise. Remember from the previous lecture, I talked about procurement model we call the just-in-time method or JIT, in which you order an item, raw materials, or whatever you need at that specific point when you need it. So in that method, it means you do not have raw materials that are lying idle. You do not have goods that are lying idle. And if you decide to use that kind of a model, then it means you need to have an appropriate budget to be able to do that. And the kind of staff that understand that kind of a method. Other internal factors include the procurement policies. Policies are simply organizational guidelines on how to undertake our procurement. Examples of those kind of policies would be what is the level of authorization and approval procedures. Uh, there are offices where when you need to order any item, big or small, then there are procedures that you need to follow. And those procedures are put together within the procurement policies. So they are key to determine under the internal factors, then what kind of strategy we come up. So it means as we develop this strategy, let us ask ourselves, what are the procurement procedures in our organization? Yeah. Other examples of policies would be supplier selection criteria. Every organization has their way of doing it in regards to how they get their suppliers or they select their suppliers. And other policies would also revolve around contractual agreements with the suppliers. And finally, on the internal factors, we have what we call the level of stakeholder engagement. In matters procurement, we have other stakeholders, for example, in relation to different departments that you have to involve. So they are going to determine the success or failure of your procurement strategy. When it comes to the external factors that are going to influence procurement and development of strategies, then we are talking about number one, market conditions. Yeah. When we are talking about market conditions, we are giving examples like supply and demand of particular goods that you maybe you're selling. What is the level of competition? What is the level of innovation around the product? And also, when we are looking at the market conditions, other aspects of markets, we are looking at the pricing of the raw materials and the goods. Then we also have another external factor, what we call the legal and regulatory environment, such as laws, standards, contracts, and ethics. When we talk about the legal and regulatory environment, for example, when you look at the European Union, they have regulations around procurement processes for all their EU members. And part of those regulations include the rules for awarding of public contracts. So they are governed by those rules. That is part of the legal and environmental issues. And I would also advise you to look at the legal and regulatory environment in your country in terms of the importation of goods. What does the law say? That is very, very crucial in terms of procurement. Other aspects as external factors, we have the social and environmental impact of the procurement activities in terms of sustainability. Sustainability, by that we simply mean the ability for whatever you are doing in procurement to be able to last. What is sustainability in terms of, for example, supplier relationships, diversity, and inclusion? Even as we are doing procurement, then we have to bring everybody on board. I see some adverts on tenders that are specifically meant for women, specifically meant for people with disability, specifically meant for the youth. Those are things around when developing a procurement strategy you need to be cognizant of as a person in the procurement department or as an organization. And finally, in terms of the external factors, then we have the risks and uncertainties associated with procurement processes and outcomes, such as delivery, quality, cost, and performance. Uh, Now, when we are doing strategy development, then we are guided by a number of approaches. And we are saying strategic approaches are going to define how managers are going to implement strategies. So you have developed a very nice strategy, but we have the implementation aspect that is guided by the following approaches. So we have what we call entrepreneurial approach, we have what we call adaptive approach, we have what we call planning approach. Now, when we talk about the entrepreneurial approach, then you are saying this kind of an approach is focuses on seizing opportunities in the environment. Remember, when you could be asked about who is an entrepreneur, yeah. So an entrepreneur, we would say, for example, is a person who identifies a need, and also once they identify the need, they gather resources, and then they be able to implement an idea or a business idea. So when we are using the entrepreneurial approach, then seizing opportunities is a key concept. In short, we are implementing strategies, but we are looking at opportunities that you are going to benefit as an organization. There are organizations that would do bulk purchasing. Like now, yesterday I talked about the fluctuations with the dollar currency. Now, there are people in the procurement sector or various companies that are, because there is every day the dollar is changing. For them, maybe before we got to where we are in terms of the exchange rates, they already ordered quite a substantial amount of their raw materials. So they seized an opportunity. And now when everybody else is complaining, then for them it is easier. I was having a conversation with somebody who sells cars, and they are really crying because of the dollar, the fluctuations of the dollar currency, because that is the currency that they use to be able to import cars. So maybe those people that foresaw, because currency fluctuations is all about you looking at the trajectory and knowing this shilling or this dollar or this South Sudanese pounds in relation to the dollar, this is the relationship in the next 5 months. And then once you anticipate that, then you can do buying now. Because when you buy an item 6 months later, you'd probably be paying more for it. So the entrepreneurial approach, is, excuse me, also focuses on having a driver, a visionary leader or a visionary leader who can be able to make very bold decisions. It is not easy to say maybe uh, let me buy stock for the next 6 months. That's a tough decision because the other market dynamics could also make you enter into losses. It's not about the currency fluctuations alone. So examples of companies that use this kind of an approach are the young, small companies and organizations that are going to are facing crisis. Within this approach, also we have uh, innovation. The aspects of innovation are key, but that is also going to be dependent with the kind of a leader that we are having. And the benefits of the entrepreneurial approach is you're going to quickly be able to make decisions. You're going to capitalize on opportunities that are available. Because remember, on our first statement, we said about seizing opportunities. And one of the challenges of this kind of an approach is high risk due to limited analysis and prone to losses. I have already mentioned that simply because you are acquiring your huge stock 6 months before the rest or in plenty does not mean that you are going to enjoy profits alone. There are other market dynamics that you also need to be cognizant of. So that is one of the approaches in strategy development, entrepreneurial approach. Then we have what we call adaptive approach. So the key focus is on reacting to environmental changes and trends. Yeah, so this particular approach is emphasizing for you to to be aware of what is happening around you as an organization, changes in the environment. Right now, we are having a lot of conversations in terms of going green, in terms of climate change. And very recently, Africa held their Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi, where they discussed a lot around climate. And I remember part of the initiative of the Africa Climate Summit that the president was demonstrating support, the Kenyan president. Throughout the summit, he drove himself to the summit venue with an electric vehicle. Yeah. It is towards supporting what we have just said, eco-friendly products. So the driver of this kind of an approach is the environment itself. So you are cognizant of what is happening in the environment. Examples of organizations that can be able to do adjustments in this kind of an approach are the universities. Courses are changing every day. People are adopting different modes of delivery, online, blended learning, combining physical and online. Hospitals, we have also advancements in technology in terms of the kind of machinery, imaging machinery that we are using, and so on and so forth. And also innovation, limited, primary, reactive solutions. advantages of this kind of an approach is that you are able to manage the challenges that arise because you are aware of what is happening in the environment, and you are keen in terms of looking at the trends. So, and the disadvantages of this kind of an approach is that maybe it may lack a clear direction. There is struggles in rapidly changing environment. So now the environment is very fast changing. So you may not be able to keep up or cope up with those kind of changes. Those are just a few. As you go through the discussion and the video later, probably you could also read about more about these approaches so that you continue to understand better in terms of them. And then the planning approach, we are saying this kind of an approach is going to systematic. It is going to focus on systematic analysis, coming up with alternatives, implementing the best strategy. So here in this approach, you have to sit down and plan. And you are not planning out of the blues. You are first analyzing, like we were saying, the current situation. You're also analyzing the market dynamics and so on and so forth. And then the driver around this is a comprehensive analysis and planning specialists. So you need to have people that know how to go about it, yeah, how to do planning, yeah. And examples of organizations or people use this kind of an approach is the large organizations that have resources for analysis. Remember, issues to do with research, you have to put in money for you to be able to do that. And then also innovation can be stifled by rigid planning if not adapted to change. The advantages of using this kind of an approach is that when you plan ahead, of course, or when you take time to plan, maybe through research, then you have a clear direction of where you want to go. You have well considered strategies simply because you have sat down and thought about them. And some of the challenges of this approach, it's a time consuming activity, of course. If you have to send people for research, it could be time consuming. Also having conversations around these strategies. And also we have inflexible and volatile environments. We have an approach here, what we call logical incrementalism, or what we call in brackets queen. Now, this kind of an approach is, it emphasizes more on making small gradual changes or adjustments in an organization. Yeah. So this kind of an approach does not encourage organizations to do an overhaul of their procurement activities, but it is encouraging them to uh, start small. If there are policies that they are changing, then they can gradually be able to change those policies. When we are using this kind of a model, of course, we are going to have a lot of flexibility, uh, and we are also going to reduce the level of risk because we are not single-handedly making this decision at once. If it is something, a new item that we want to introduce in the name of raw materials, then we can slowly by slowly get in smaller quantities as we test whether it's going to be of help to us. Now, we have an important discussion also around the steps of procurement strategy. What are some of the steps that we need to undertake? Number one, which is very, very important, we need to identify the objectives and scope of the procurement project, such as the desired outcomes. So what is it that we want to achieve from the strategy? And we also look at the quality standards. In terms of quality, what is it that we are looking at? In terms of the budget, how much do we have? for our procurement activities. Remember, if we are talking about personnel, there's a place we have mentioned on the need to have the right people when we are doing planning. Those people are not just existing in the organization just for the sake of it. Yeah, so timeline, risks, and stakeholders involved. Mm. So the stakeholders are the people that are interested in all procurement activities. For example, the finance department is key. Suppliers are very, very critical people. The management of the organization, very critical people in terms of procurement. Procurement staff, all those people must be on board and be informed of what is happening. The other one is conduct a market analysis to understand the supply and demand conditions. So look around the market in terms of supply and demand of your raw materials, your goods, your services. That is not something that you can determine out of the blues. There are indicators that you have to look for. For example, if you are selling goods, then you can be able to know the quantity of what you have sold. The availability and suitability of potential suppliers. Uh, I was in another town very recently and I needed a certain service, and only one person was being mentioned, that the person who offers the service. I found that very, very interesting. So you could find yourself in that kind of situation. If it is only one supplier of a particular item or service, then what is the likelihood of maybe finding that they are not available? Yeah. So there is need for you to analyze on the number of suppliers. And also number three, you need to define the procurement approach and method. We have just been discussing that also, that including the contract. So agreements in terms of payments, in terms of when to deliver the goods, the sourcing strategy, evaluation criteria. We also need to do supplier evaluation. The reason why you are doing supplier evaluation is to ascertain whether the suppliers that we have are doing the correct job and they are doing everything appropriately. Other steps include the need for you to develop a procurement plan that outlines the activities, milestones, responsibilities, resources, and deliverables for each stage. So come up with a plan. What are the key activities that we intend to undertake in the procurement strategy? We have just talked about activities like issues to do with supplier identification, milestones, responsibilities in the context of who is going to do what in our procurement chain. Yeah, that is also very, very important. And finally, implement the procurement plan now. You need, when you are doing it, of course, you are following established procedures and guidelines in order to be able to communicate effectively with internal and external parties. And finally, the last step, after implementation, then everything has to be evaluated. So let us evaluate our strategy and see, we could ask ourselves questions like, did it work for us? Uh, have we achieved our objectives? Remember, that was one of our first steps. What is the quality of deliverables? What is the quality of the goods that we have received? Those are things that we must do for us to be able to succeed. Then we are going to look at the role of organizations, mission, vision in the procurement strategy. So under this particular session, then we delve into the discussions around mission and vision. What is the difference between a mission and a vision? And we are saying these two are critical in terms of ensuring that we succeed in terms of our procurement and sourcing activities. Yeah, so these two, we are saying, they define the organization's long-term vision and mission. And when we are having the vision statements, it describes the desired future state. By that, we are simply saying, where do we want to go as an organization? And the mission statement is going to outline the organization's purpose. When you read a mission statement for any organization, even when you are not told the exact organization, you can be able to say this is a financial institution, this is a school, and I invite you to read maybe the vision statement and the mission statement of Bristol University. When you come across those statements, you may not need to be told this is a school, because if the mission is explaining the current or the purpose why we exist, then the statement should be able to portray the same. Mm. Um, and the vision we have just mentioned, it focuses about the future and where we need to be, yeah, and where we need to be as an organization. And there is an example that is being given here that this is Apple's vision statement. I find this particular statement a very, very interesting one. That it talks about to make the best products on earth and leave the world a better place than we found it. That's a very, very interesting vision. I think as we think about beginning organizations, then the crafting of visions and missions is quite critical in the essence of where we want to go and what we will be doing as an organization. We have another example of another vision, one for Microsoft, and it talks about to empower people through a great software anytime, any place, or any device. Also a very, very interesting vision statement. And we have the vision statement of Bristol Institute is to become a globally recognized academic institution that uses technological innovations to create an engaging learning environment for students. Very, very great vision statement also for Bristol um, Institute. Remember, we have said the vision statement is intended to tell us about where we want to be in the future. And that's why this one is talking about becoming a globally recognized academic institution. Now, when we are crafting a vision statement, what is it that we are looking at? And that's why we are talking about the features of this vision statement. Number one, it should be inspiring and aspirational. So it should inspire staff. It should inspire the people that are working around the institution to be able to work very hard and to show the organization future. From what we have just read here, to become a globally recognized academic institution, who doesn't want to be in such kind of a setup of an organization? So because of that particular statement, then it propels the employees of Bristol University, Bristol Institute to be committed in whatever that they do. So we are also saying in the same statement that it should be ambitious. So we need to see where the vision statement is taking us. It should show us that there is what we intend to achieve in a particular duration of time. And also another feature of a good vision is that it should be clear and concise. So very simple to understand. You can see what we have just read here about the Apple's vision statement. To make the best products on earth and leave the world a better place than we found it. Anybody would read that vision statement and find it very interesting because it is clear, it is short, and it is very straightforward, like the discussion is saying here. We use very straightforward language when we are developing these vision statements. It should also be future oriented. A vision statement focuses on the future and describes what the organizations aim to achieve in the long term. So we have seen what the Bristol Institute vision is talking about, to become Yeah, so we are looking into the future. And then also it should be memorable. A powerful vision statement is memorable and sticks in the minds of stakeholders. That's also a very, very interesting characteristic. Another one is that it is ambiguous and flexible. We are saying that it should be broad enough to allow for flexibility. Flexibility means, remember, there's a place we have just talked about changes in the environment and many other changes. Then you can tailor make your vision to suit the current situations that we would find ourselves in as organizations. And also, it should also be stakeholder focused. A vision statement should consider the needs and aspirations of various stakeholders. And this includes the customers, it includes the employees, it includes the investors, it includes the communities, and so on and so forth. Others is that the vision needs to be measurable, connected to specific objectives. So we need at some point to be able to ask ourselves, like Apple are saying, have we made the world a better place? So we need to be able to evaluate ourselves. And another one is that it should be authentic and believable. And that simply means that the vision should be able to reflect organizations' true intentions. So now, as stakeholders, then we can be able to question Apple and ask ourselves and ask themselves or ask them, is it true that you have made the world a better place? So don't just craft visions and missions just for the sake of it, just because you have to do them. Yeah. Uh, Now we go to what we call a mission statement. And we are saying it outlines the purpose and the fundamental reason for an organization's existence. I had initially said from the previous discussion, when you read any mission statement, then it should be able to tell you uh, what kind of an organization you are dealing with. So we are also saying that any mission statement is going to provide a very clear and concise statement of the organization, in terms of who it serves, how it creates value, and so on and so forth. Um, we have just looked at the characteristics of a good vision statement. So we can also have a discussion around the characteristics of mission statement. Number one, it's need to have purpose and direction. So it's going to be answering very fundamental questions in regards to why the organization exists. So what is the purpose? So if you are crafting a mission statement and it's not answering the question on in terms of purpose, then you are sure that it may not be the right mission statement. So I want you to look at other mission statements for different companies. Ask yourself when you are reading them, whether that is the actual purpose of the company or the actual purpose of the organization. But two, it should also be concise and clear. Some of them are just similar to the ones of the vision statement. So we need clarity when we are crafting those kind of statements. It should be specific and focused. That means it should be able to achieve the organization's objectives and also be able to define the scope of the organization's operations. Customer and stakeholder focus. So any good mission statement should also be able to focus on customers, and be able to understand different kinds of customers. It should also have differentiation. We are saying, we also mentioned that yesterday, what differentiation is all about. It should be able to make you stand out from your competitors. That's what we mean. Or it should be able to show you the difference between you and your competitors. So maybe we can do and try capture the uniqueness in terms of the quality of service, in terms of the quality of goods that we are offering, capabilities of the organization to meet the supply and demand, and so on and so forth. And also, it should be realistic and achievable. Yeah, that which we can be able to achieve as an organization, or that purpose that we can surely for sure execute. Now, we are also saying very importantly that a vision statement communicates an organization's long-term aspirations. I think we have mentioned about that. It is also going to talk about the ultimate goals of where we want to be. And they provide a sense of direction, helping employees understand the overall goals or objectives. I think we have had that kind of a discussion. Then guides decision making and strategy. So the visions and mission statements are key in terms of providing guidance and providing or becoming guiding principles for making decisions. So they act as a strategic compass. When you're talking about a strategic compass, then visions and missions would give us the direction of where we want to be as an organization. And through that, they can help leaders and employees align their actions, initiatives, strategies with the organization's overarching goals and values. Um, and we're also saying when organizations are faced with choices and challenges, referring to the vision and mission statements, it ensures that decisions are made in line with the organizational purpose. And we're also saying that they facilitate long term planning and goal setting. The vision and mission statements are very important in terms of helping the organization set crucial goals uh, for that is going to lead to them to be able to succeed. It differentiates the organization. So when we have compelling visions and missions, then any organization is going to stand out as a great organization, as an organization that is able to achieve uh, goals and objectives. And we are also saying within the next statement that is going to assist you establish uh, an identity, a unique identity for that purpose. If somebody asks you about Bristol University, what is that uniqueness aspect that you can be able to single out? If anybody asks you about Apple company, what is that unique item that you would single out? That is what visions and missions can be able to do for the organization. And they also foster unity and alignment. Once we openly and correctly communicate these vision statements, we are able to create a sense of purpose among employees, stakeholders, and other kinds of partners. And it's going to help individuals in along diverse aspects to be able to strive to achieve a common goal because it has already been put in terms of a vision and mission. We also importantly discuss about the goals and objectives. Each of them we are saying that they are very essential in strategic planning, and they are used to define what the organization wants to achieve. Um, so what do we mean by using the term goals? We simply mean that they are broad and overarching statements that describe the desired outcome or results that organizations aim to accomplish. And they also goals are also key in terms of providing high level direction where we want to be and focus of the organization. And we are also emphasizing that they are qualitative in nature. Yeah. maybe somebody would ask you, what is the difference between qualitative and quantitative? Uh, Qualitative in nature means they are statement like, they are put in a statement way, yeah, that you can be able to read. But when we talk about quantitative, for example, in terms of goals, then they are statistical in nature. For example, when we say we would want to make a profit of this and this amount of money. So examples of goals include increasing the market share, enhancing customer satisfaction, improving brand recognition, and also fostering innovation and within the organization. And when we talk about objectives, they are specific, they are measurable, they are time bound. That is a description from what we call the SMART abbreviation. And we're also saying these objectives are able to break down the broader goals into actionable and measurable components. And they are also able to provide a roadmap and define the specific steps and milestones that can be achieved. And finally, objectives. Remember, I've said goals are qualitative. Objectives, we can also say that they are quantitative. And I've said quantitative, we can also say that they are statistical in nature. And that's why we are talking about number one, increasing sales revenue by 10% in the next fiscal year. The other one is reducing customer complaints by 20%. Maybe we are in an organization where we are receiving a lot of complaints, customer complaints. What are we doing about it? We want to reduce that by 20%. That's an objective. It is quantitative in nature. And finally, it is another example is maybe launching new products in the market by the end of the year. So that has brought us to the end of this particular lecture. Unless there is any comment, we could be able to call it a day from that point. Any comment or question? So thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.